Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, a game like no other. Though many have taken inspiration from its world design, no single studio has ever, in my opinion, come close to matching the freedom that it offers us. The ability to truly disappear into another world, with its engaging lore, politics, war, dragons, magic and adventure. The sheer amount of content and consistent enjoyment that it offers us in its own unique Bethesda way is just unparalleled. It has taken its place in the culture as one of the most popular video games of all time, and I'm old enough to remember that it gave us one of these OG memes as well.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
However, this video has a specific purpose that it aims to address. I've been playing Skyrim since it first came out when I was in high school. Since then, I've owned it on several consoles. From the Xbox 360, which I bought with money that I saved doing a paper round when I was 14 or 15. My old PC, which wasn't even good enough to play it at the time. The Switch, and finally the PlayStation 5, which I'm playing it on now. I must have seen the intro of this game a good 15 or 20 times during the last 15 years, during playthroughs some of which have lasted longer than others. However, what I've realised is that for how much I was enjoying my journey, or how far I got into the game, I never actually managed to finish it. The main story, or even most of any of the questlines. And even more alarming, each playthrough seemed to last less time than the one before, and I would ask myself why, almost disappointed in myself, as if my failure to remain engaged was a personal failure, a defect in my character, or something like that. Or could it simply be the fact that I've played it so many times and that it's clearly shown its age, which makes it seem dated and less enjoyable than a more recent game, KCD2 for example.
I want to make a golem out of dough.
Isn't that a kind of pie?
Henry!
I'd like to answer that question with this video, and more importantly, talk about why I'm finally enjoying and appreciating this game more than ever before. This video will be split into two main sections, each with their own subsections. The first exploring what makes Skyrim, Skyrim, and the second will answer the question that I've attempted to set up in the introduction, since I'm trying to establish a little bit of structure here for your sanity and mine. Thank you for watching this far, and hope you enjoy the video. Section 1. Skyrim, World and Aesthetic. Skyrim is a beautiful looking game. It may have been created in 2011, 15 years ago, but with the various updates it has received over the years, it certainly manages to impress even today. This is especially true of the actual world, and even more in particularly at a distance, which works very well with the type of game that Skyrim is, an open world RPG which offers the freedom to go anywhere that you can see. I mean, look at this. As well as being really visually pleasing, it's also really cool to know that these stunning mountains with the sun setting behind are not just a backdrop to some linear mission, but parts of an explorable world that I could, should I choose, visit and possibly even reach the top of. As I've been replaying Skyrim, I've allowed myself to slow down and just appreciate my surroundings, from the snowy mountainous regions to the north to the snowy mountainous regions of the south. Nah, I'm just kidding. Skyrim's landscapes may be mainly mountains and snow, but there is diversity in it enough to keep things interesting. Lovely green areas with trees, cities of different designs and climates, and even a whole nother island that you can visit, which lies to the northeast of Skyrim and the northwest of Morrowind, and its climate and landscapes reflect that in a very interesting way. Harsh and alien, with totally different architecture, even the trees look mental. I do remember that this was one of the areas that I totally exhausted when I got the Dragonborn DLC, and I'm looking forward to revisiting it on this playthrough. Although something I'm still frustrated by a week later, to gain access to it required being attacked by two masked cultists in Riverwood, and as I was fighting them, to my shame, I saw the guards started attacking me too, so I had to use the I'm a Thane card on them. I doubt I'll be able to pull that one again, so I'll need to be careful, I suppose. I really think that right from the moment that we escaped from that cave with Hadvar after the dragon attack on Helgen, the contrast between the darkness and the light almost blinds us for a second as we enter the world of Skyrim. The sheer beauty and size of the world is one of the first things that sparks our curiosity enough to really want to discover more. and as anyone who has played this game knows, there is no shortage of things to discover. The world never feels empty. Possibly the most alive and immersive game world ever created. And this is coming from a massive Red Dead Redemption 2 fan, by the way.
We need money!
From not only the encounters with friendly NPCs along the roads, random attacks from bandits who seriously overestimate their own capabilities, the times that we see a prisoner of war escorted to his execution, and yes, most famously, dragon attacks. But one of my favourite parts of it, truthfully, is the wildlife. I remember a moment when I was playing late at night, and I so wish I had the footage of it in order to show you what it was like. I was feeling very tired. I wasn't really doing much that required effort, just really wandering about and admiring the views. Then this rabbit shoots into view, and I just mindlessly start following him, not really sure why. So as I'm looking at the ground and just following this wee critter, it leads me over some sort of crater, and then that captures my attention. So I'm just kind of looking at it and trying to figure out what might have caused it. Then finally I look up to see this absolutely gorgeous view of a massive open plain, sun setting, giant wandering about in the distance, mountains in the background, and I realised something. Sometimes you just have to slow down and enjoy things. It genuinely leads to moments like that sometimes, and they're worth it.
You had a bit of a good time, mate. Yeah, well, that's what life's about, isn't it? That's what life's about, mate.
Though, while the scenery and world of Skyrim are one of the first things that draws us in, they really are just the setting for the story, the action and the adventures that we will have in this game. Section 2. The Civil War, World Politics, and Lore. Skyrim is certainly a world full of strong and differing opinions. From the most insignificant NPCs to General Tullius, the experienced leader of the Imperial forces in Skyrim, and Ulfric Stormcloak, the imperious leader of the rebellion against the Imperial occupation of Skyrim. And this conflict has a large part to play in the story. During my playthrough, I ended up reaching Windhelm by accident, after some exploring when my girlfriend saw a city through the mist and wanted to explore it, continuing along the path until I reached the gates. It was a cold, dark night when I entered that grey stone city, and my first impression was coloured not only by the lifelessness and harshness of its interior, but the encounter at the gates with two racist Nords and a dark elf, or Greyskin they called her. Well, it's Piel Gris in Espanol, so hopefully the literal translation works. After asking her about her ordeal and promising that I didn't also hate her people, she told me that, well, maybe this city isn't the right place for me then. Taking a walk around the city that allowed me time to ponder her words, I found that there wasn't much to encourage me to stay in the first place. The heavy clouds above in the darkness, the narrow streets and passageways, beggars and a belligerent drunkard in the streets at night. I felt like the place was as dead as King Torrig himself, and I realised that that led me to feel like Ulfric must have that type of effect on his surroundings. Fair or not, first impressions matter. By contrast, my first journey to the capital, Solitude, was another experience entirely. From a distance, again through the mist, and from a vantage point seemingly miles below, I saw a majestic city built on a cliff, reminding me a lot of Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings. I head towards it, feeling like it's definitely worth exploring. After crossing the river, facing a hated rival, I start on the path leading up to the city. In stark contrast to the cold and insecure feeling of Windhelm, the road up to Solitude was a lovely looking path, lanterns lining it all the way up, harbour to the left and a little further up a farm, all making it seem like it was actually part of a civilised society, of a civilization where law and order helped to create a desirable place to live. And the lovely sunny day we had during this trip made it impact me even more. It was almost like the game wanted me to feel a certain way towards each of the factions, although knowing that it was pure chance that I stumbled across Ulfric's capital in the dead of night and arrived in Solitude during a beautiful day, It made me wonder how other players' experiences have differed and other opinions been formed by that same concept of random chance. But to return to the point of this section, a large part of what makes this game interesting is the politics, the history and the lore of the world. The Civil War is not the only thing happening behind the scenes. There is the ever-looming threat of the Thalmor, another empire that can rival that of Cyrodiil's. Then there is the question of religious freedom and repression, and the banning of the worship of the Nordic god Talos, and the reappearance of the fearsome dragons, which only desire to destroy this country and its people. And we don't only learn these things through missions, but are invited to, if we desire, piece together the history of the world through random interactions, one-off lines of dialogue, and even reading books. I particularly enjoyed ascending the throat of the world to reach the greybeards, and reading the information on the little shrines on the way up, telling us the history of the Thu'um, the war between dragons and men, and the founding of this reclusive order after the Great War. So much to think about was given by such a few lines of writing. It actually reminded me of how the Bible is structured, short, even blunt-seeming lines, which contain so much information. Add this to all the little bits of info about the personal lives of the NPCs we encounter, the world of Skyrim really does seem alive, with a history as believable and discoverable as our own. It does seem like I've managed to write a whole lot without mentioning one of the things that you'll be doing most often in Skyrim. And that is, of course, using anything you've got in your inventory to give you some advantage, to give you any advantage, as you're fighting for your life against Skyrim's many dangers. Section 3. Combat. This section will be about the combat in the game, and to illustrate my points, I want to use the taking of the fort, Kragstad, I think, for the Legion as my example. Now, it's a well-known fact that Skyrim is not renowned for its stellar combat in the way that Dark Souls is, for example. During this mission, I accepted as my interview for joining the Empire. I discovered that I actually quite enjoyed the combat experience. It definitely felt that it was at least deeper than it's given credit for. At its heart, it's about swinging your axe, sword, Daedric mace, etc. at the enemies until they stop moving. But as I'll try to show in this section, it's a little deeper than that. So, after accepting the mission from Legate Ricky, who was so unbothered about sending me to my probable death that she'd just managed to get out in between bites of her dinner, I headed out towards the fort. I was called over by a hooded fellow named Jerry Ra, who my girlfriend told me not to associate with for his sketchy demeanour. But to me, he looked like a totally normal man with absolutely legit intentions. She's always telling me that she doesn't like my friends. Later on, I did find out what that guy was all about, and it started to make sense to me why I was kidnapped so much as a wee boy. Still though, when I did finally get him, I was El Sangre de Dragon, and not in the mood for his antics. Anyway, he's not related to this section, so let's get back to the point. I left the city, dressed myself appropriately with gear that I couldn't remember how I obtained, dead Imperials most likely, and set off. On arriving at the fort, I noted that it was likely a fine piece of architectural engineering at one point. First time, I just kind of walked up to the front gate, took a failed shot at the watchman, then another. Then before I know it, I'm being swarmed by bandits. In the midst of the fighting and dodging arrows, I took serious damage until this point, where I found myself in serious trouble. Even if I hadn't been conservative with the potions, it would have likely been lights out. Next time, I thought to try a bit more caution and improve my horrendous aim. One shot at the guard, and my full attention was on the bandits coming from below. I thought I'd try to separate and focus on one at a time, but I only ended up getting chased about and then was hit like a home run in Major League Baseball, and that was that.
Oh no! That's a shot. Nelson's down. Carpenter's going to come in to score. The warming up, so he'll get plenty of time.
This time I had a bit less patience to spare. I walked right up to the gate, Post Road Ad, the watchman archer, got straight into a fight with the 3 bandits who sallied forth from the fort. Would maybe call this a tactical error, since the pros of not having to dodge arrows were definitely outweighed by not having the ability to send my close quarter combat opponents 200 feet in the other direction, especially against 3 of them. Having decided to try to work on one bandit at a time to be able to fight the strongest one-on-one later, I focused my Dark Force powers on the weakest bandit in order to have less of my concentration split amongst multiple enemies. With him down, I'll work on the next one. My next target, since he had a weaker strength, would be the one with less health. While trying to favour attacks on him, I had also realised that I am one of those lightly armoured, magic and one-handed weapon type players. I had to be getting out of the way of the attacks more often. So I had to prioritise not taking damage over landing hits, meaning I was pulling back from landing power strikes if I saw the landing would also mean taking a hit. After taking him out with I could attack the last one with a bit more recklessness and still come out on top. So, with phase 1 a success, took a second to relish in my victory. Almost instantly I took an arrow to the chest and was brought back to reality. I was in the wide open with low health and had 2 pro-medieval snipers interested in my demise. I healed up and armed myself for a long-range skirmish. After a short while, I realised that Maximus Aurelius' thing was not long-range skirmishes, and I ran for the gate in an attempt to take on the bandits in close quarters, keeping myself covered. I carefully look around and advance up the wall. Having seen an enemy, I get as close as possible and head to cover. Choose my moment as his arrows fly past and charge at him, shouting him to the ground. With no one else to concern myself with, I waste no time tearing through to him. Next, I found myself in between 2 archers, one above and one below. Placing myself in an area which I believe would provide safety from the archer with the high ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
¡Se acabó, Anakin! ¡La altura me da ventaja!
After engaging with the one without the high ground advantage in a long-range battle for a few moments, I remember why I gave it up in the first place. I heal up and I rush second bro, cutting him to even finer ribbons. For the last one, turns out the high ground doesn't provide adequate advantage in Bethesda games, as my opponent seemed to be stuck trying to walk into a wall.
You underestimate my power!
Don't try it!
Here, thanks to the genius of Todd Howard's game design, I was able to take full advantage of the bolt for the first time. I advance along the wall and up the tower to see one final opponent in the taking of the outside section of the fort, and I was in no doubt of the best strategy to eliminate her. Having cleared the exterior, it was now time to set my sights on the interior and find the boss man. On entering, I see an enemy right in front of me. I tried to use the stealth damage bonus for an initial advantage, but before long I'm surrounded by 3 bandits in close quarters, and I'm attempting to backtrack while dealing as much damage as I can with fire. It's almost enough to kill one of them, but I'm quickly overrun and hit with some sort of electric baseball bat and it slides out. Second attempt. I used the stealth advantage with a melee weapon, but Maximus must have the finesse of a walking sausage. And he's alerted before I reach the target. Hoping to slightly balance the odds, knowing that the other enemies will be heading my way, I attempt to take out the Khajiit as quickly as possible, do a pretty fair amount of damage before the extra from Mad Max shows up. Seeing that she is a much weaker opponent, I use the lower level of my favourite Thum to put her off balance, conserving the chance to use the more powerful level later on. It makes short work of her, leaving me only a heavily injured opponent to contend with. So far, so good. Noticing the boss hasn't joined his lackeys this time, I take a moment to liberate anything of value from my fallen foes, and next thing I know, being charged by a heavily armoured and very angry man. Fortunately, I had foreseen a moment such as this and was able to use the time-honoured tactic of waiting till you're at death's door to raise your level, granting me full health and a renewed chance to win the encounter. I squandered that chance, badly. Seeing that I was out of potions and forgetting in the heat of the moment about my many cheese wheels, and realising that my only chance was to put myself in a more spacious area in order to heal by magic, I beat a hasty retreat, expecting to see the boss man following me out. He never did, so I healed up and headed back in, ready to be battered up and down the place the second that I re-entered. But he wasn't there waiting for me, so I stealthily make my way up the stairs, and what do I see? The boss was at the far end of the upper room, singing a song about orcs and beer, and who knows what else, seemingly having totally forgotten about his dead mates and the dragonborn roaming about his base. One of the Bethesda moments of all time, but one that was very fortuitous, as I had the chance to hit him with several arrows, launch him across the room, and barbecue him within an inch of his life, chopping him up to serve to the Legion recruitment officer. So then I took a 23-hour nap in his bed, during which I stopped recording and went back to speak to Rike. Turns out I had forgotten to check all the interiors in the fort, and she angrily sent me back there, which kinda killed the triumphant moment to end this section, but it gave me and my girlfriend a good laugh.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
So, to summarise this section and the points that I've tried to make. Combat is not as polished as it is in some games, true. However, the combination of slower pace, weapon and magic types, and amusing ways that Bethesda games tend to glitch out a bit, make it a not boring experience, with room to experiment and try different things even within a specific character build. Mine, for example, relies heavily on one-handed weapons and offensive magic, meaning that blocking is not usually an option, and light armour is preferable as it allows me to get out of the way of enemies, strike out quickly and use magic to cover my retreat. So look, there are an absolute multitude of aspects that I've not covered in this video so far. The game is chock full of quests, interesting characters, skills to hone, guilds to join, and even houses to build. I've not played through much of the game on this playthrough, and the last time I did get very far in it was a considerable while ago, and it's not all so fresh in my mind. But as enjoyable as it is, as well made as it is, there is always that one aspect of ourselves that seems to bring down our enjoyment of something over time, until you find that you're just not interested in it anymore. It's human nature, we get bored. So in part 2 of this video, which will be a lot shorter, we're going to discuss how a new factor has really reignited my love and enjoyment of this game in a way that I would never have guessed.
¿Qué vas a hacer, eh? ¿Echarte a llorar? No tengo por qué aceptar eso de ti.
What is the answer to this unfortunate aspect of human nature that means that we tend to get bored of everything after a while? Well, it's a big question. And even while writing this, I can actually see the benefits of getting bored with something, as it allows us to move on to the next thing that fulfills us. So let's frame it in this way instead. How can we return to having joy in something that used to bring us so much in the past? Well, for me, it's been like this. My girlfriend, the one who dragged me out of my comfy life in the old country,
I forget which one exactly.
is not an avid gamer. She talks fondly of her time as a young girl, playing some old Roman strategy game that I'd never heard of, and also The Sims. But growing up, like most girls, gaming was not high on the priority list. So recently I've been trying to get her involved, and I asked if she would like to see Skyrim. So I loaded it up, having only played it once on this playthrough, so not too far in, and her reaction was priceless. She looked in awe of Whiterun, of all the NPCs with their own thing going on, the lovely look of the city, and very quickly became invested in the Jarl's request that we help out Iridif by killing this dragon. She had an amusing comment for almost every interaction, and her reaction to the little homeless girl was heartbreaking. She wanted to adopt her, but as I said, we don't have a house for her to live. Earning money became her top priority. Also, the courier gave her a laugh, as the first time he came running up, she was like, "Hola Paco." And I was like, "What? Why Paco?" And she laughed, saying only, Pues no sé, tiene cara de un Paco. Or basically, I don't know, he just looks like a Paco. I can't really do some of these moments justice, unfortunately, and I really wish I had recorded us talking while playing too, but hindsight is 20/20 as they say. Then came Lydia, who she could not only help comment on her makeup, in that way that lassies do when they're genuinely impressed. As we climb up the mountain to the throat of the world to see the greybeards, and we had to fight an ice troll, my girlfriend was tense as anything, watching Lydia get kicked up and down the icy passage, to the point where she was shouting at me to get in there and basically get myself killed to keep her alive. And with about 0.2% of her health bar still remaining, Lydia's comment to the troll before I finished it off with fire was, "No puedes conmigo," roughly translated to, "You can't handle me." And this prompted the earning of my girlfriend's undying respect, busting out, "Es una guerrera espartana esta mujer," or "This woman is a Spartan warrior." During our encounter with the saber-toothed tiger, both our blood pressures were dangerously high, as I felt that if I let her die, I'd be getting slapped about myself. And even down to the way that she would look at me with genuine shock and disappointment for Toast Rodan, a rabbit. Like, how could you do that? I don't know. As well as making me feel like a terrible person, it also made me feel more invested in the reality of the world. Like, I wouldn't do that in real life, so yeah. Having someone to talk to while playing the game, talking about the lore and world to understand it better, just makes it a lot more fun. In the past, I did have mates that I used to play games with, long hours at night during high school, playing Black Ops 2 Zombies and Minecraft, Battlefield 4 with my friend group after high school, and on split screen as well, and on Xbox Live, or even playing Fortnite with my brothers and sisters. But recently, having not had anyone to play games with has probably affected my enjoyment of them. And now that my girlfriend is starting to enjoy them with me, it's honestly one of the best ways for me to enjoy gaming in a bunch of different ways. I suppose at the end of the day, humans are not solitary creatures, and even with a single player game like Skyrim, the ability to share it with someone that you care about, be it your family, your mates, or your girlfriend, is like 80% of the fun. And I'm glad that I've came to that conclusion during the writing of this essay, as it really answered that question of, why am I not enjoying this game as much as I used to? Yes, it's old, it could be considered dated, or it should be considered dated even. Yes, there are more polished games on the market, but the best game is the one that you enjoy the most. And if that means you're enjoying time with a loved one more, then who cares about anything else? So, this is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. The making of this video has certainly been a journey, and if anybody managed to stay to the end, please leave a comment saying so. Because my last and first video got about 80 views at the time of writing, and I don't believe anybody even watched it to the end. Understandable, I'm low budget, and the quality isn't the best. Over time, when money isn't such a crushing existential crisis to me, I will definitely be investing in better equipment, and in the meantime, be working on my editing skills and anything else that will improve the quality of output, especially audio output. To anyone who got this far, I'm Jimmy McMahon, and thank you for watching.